is Bitcoin then a self-fulfilling prophecy? As in, the longer Bitcoin exists, the more information it has stored, the lower the entropy of that ledger, the more valuable that ledger is, the higher the density of this information, more order, right? The higher its trustworthiness, predictability, stability, the higher the incentive to contribute to it, which ensures it exists longer, right? And then it's kind of like a repeat there.
Virtuous cycle.
Yeah. Do you think in a similar way about that?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I think one of the most important mental models to embrace in dealing with this reality is that most things are feedback loops, right? That it's not linear. A causes B causes C. Like, no, the effect, the cause, first of all, it's very difficult to isolate a cause, right? That everything's multivariate basically. But then when you identify
infinite
cause
systems
and effect,
and systems, I'd say.
Yeah. And then so when you can identify cause and effect, in reality, the effect often changes the cause again. So it's like there's often feedback between cause and effect. And so what does that mean is that everything's always in flux and always changing, right? This is like kind of a philosophical axiom sort of about reality, that change is the only thing that never changes, right? Everything is changing all the time. So because everything's changing all the time and everything is in feedback loop relationships, they tend to be, in the human sense, we could say they're either virtuous cycles or they're vicious cycles. You could say they're self-reinforcing feedback loops. They're either going a positive direction as judged from the standpoint of the participant, or they're going a negative direction. And so what you're describing with fiat, it's doubly insidious too, because again, money is one of these things that we unconsciously perhaps expect to be orderly, right? Like you go into the marketplace, you embrace all the entropy and uncertainty. You're going to fail 9 times out of 10, roughly speaking. But the 1 time out of 10 you do succeed and you find a product or a service that people actually want and are willing to pay for, well, then you try to stash those proceeds, those profits, in something that's very low risk, right? You've already taken a lot of risk.
Yes.
You took a lot of market risk, a lot of execution risk, et cetera, to find the fitness between your product and the market. Okay, now I want to de-risk and take those profits and put them into something orderly, low risk, low entropy, right?
Yes.
That's what money is supposed to be. Money is supposed to be that thing, right? It's a thing we hold purchasing power in, right? Which is basic purchasing power is our claim on the social order, right? That other people are also creating purchasable goods and services. And this is the thing I can use to go and acquire those things to satisfy my wants. Well, what happens when you have fiat money is that you are now injecting entropy into the monetary order, the thing that we're depending on maintaining its orderliness so that we can embrace market uncertainty. Has now itself become uncertain. So not only does this create the vicious cycle of, okay, well, I as a producer am now incentivized less to produce because I can't keep my profits, right? Some of the profits and purchasing power I have earned is going to the central bank, the money printer. There's that problem. But then there's the further problem that I'm now incentivized, since I'm not incentivized to be productive, I'm actually incentivized to be non-productive.
Yes, correct.
Right? If I can just get close to the money printer, or maybe I'll just start my own money printing business, right? Like another criminal activity. I'm actually incentivized to contribute to the entropy. So hence the vicious cycle. Like especially when you attack the thing, again, the monetary order that's supposed to be the thing that's very low surprise, low entropy, and you just inject entropy directly into it by setting up a central bank and having money printing, well, then everyone that uses the money is now incentivized to tilt that virtuous cycle of economics, where it's like I experiment, try to satisfy consumer wants, better, faster, cheaper. If I win, then I'm rewarded. You now turn that virtuous cycle into the vicious cycle of let me just scam everyone as fast as I can and run away with what I can, because there's no safe place to keep it. And there's also the incentive to take on more debt. and the incentive to be, to gamble more and all these things. So it's like, it is a fantastic corruption, I think, of even the human soul when you really dig into it. As you used the term before, spiritual crime.
Yeah, that's
like the ultimate
about,
spiritual crime.
I'm now thinking about the word unnatural. What you're describing is very unnatural. It would not be, what you are describing would not be possible in wild nature.
Right. It's not emergent. It's a top-down, artificial selection.
But the possibility isn't even there in the wild, true nature, right? And then I was thinking, but nature, and then I was thinking nature is also a zero-sum game in the sense that there's, again, a cheetah wins and a buffalo loses or whatever. But that is not true, because there are a lot of examples in nature where animals actually work together, or they drink at a certain well, or the fish is under a certain shark or whatever. Like, nature is not a zero-sum game. Yes, it's a symbiosis. It's the ecosystems, right? It's in many cases it is actually a mutually beneficial game, and the flowers and the bees and that is undeniable.
Yes.
Right? That is the case. And when you are talking about what fiat money brings us, it gives us behavior that's very unnatural. It gives us outcomes that are very unnatural, even to the degree, and I think, this podcast is Bitcoin for Millennials. Like, one of the things that I see is that in our generation, people don't want to have kids because they are super insecure about the future. They're nihilistic about the future, right? So they're purposefully saying, I do not want to procreate. I am going against my biological urge because some sort of human-made technology is prohibiting me from actually following that. I think that is the craziest thing, actually, from the brokenness of money, right? The most unnatural thing that it is given us.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And this goes back to exactly what we were talking about earlier, right? Where if you have really strong private property, then you have these fixed rules in the game, right? That you can go and build a productive strategy on. I know that all I need to do is go into the world and find some fitness between my skills and my interest and what other people want. And if I can establish that fitness and I can give people what they want based on my skills, my passion, whatever the thing is, then I can reap profits that I can then keep in a low entropy medium like sound money. And I can build a base, an economic base on which I can afford to raise a family.
In the multiplied chaos of our world, accelerated by fiat money, it's becoming more and more difficult to actually do that. That's why a lot of people still want it, because they feel that it's not an attainable thing. Does that make sense? Like, that's why all the self-help stuff, is so strong. Whereas if you live in a true capitalistic society, like you said, the merit-based, proof of work-based, then it's also okay to fail. I usually think, right? Like, the whole point is to fail, to try and fail, right? And to also figure out, like, who is then actually better than me? Oh, that's the guy that should actually make the bread. And I shouldn't make the bread because my bread sucks. I'm going to do another thing. I think that's very positive.
Yes.
Like, that would drive actual human evolution, to tie back to the evolution. That would make you a better human, a better actor in the world.
Yes, absolutely. And then, because you're able to learn, right? And learning is what evolution is doing, right? It's adapting to the changing circumstances. But when that learning signal is interrupted, right? Because you could actually be a really profitable bread maker, for instance. But if you're living in a very inflationary regime, well, then your business might still fail by no fault of your own. Right. So it's like, you can't even learn, is there product market fit between my bread and the market, because, they're printing money too quickly. And so what is this? This goes back to, again, the biblical stuff, right? Thou shalt not steal. Well, money printing is stealing. Did any surprise that one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not steal, that if you do engage in it and you break that commandment, that you inhibit our ability to be fruitful and multiply, right? They go hand in hand. So why are people all of a sudden not wanting to start families? Because they can't afford it. It's not like people are like, oh, it's social media and people don't care anymore and the psychology has changed. It's like, sure, everything's multivariate. Everything's multivariate. You could chase down a million different causes for why people aren't doing it. But I guarantee you, like, I don't want to say I guarantee you, I have very strong conviction that the primary contributor to people not wanting to start families is the affordability issue.
Yeah.
It's so obvious, right? What do? People do what they can't afford, right? People live up to their income or their net asset value, their net worth. If you rug pull them on that, then of course they're not going to want to have kids. Kids are insanely expensive to have, right? It's the most meaningful thing in the world, but if you can't afford it, then you literally can't do it. So there's no surprise to me at all that that's the case. So what does that mean? You mentioned like this lean into self-help and all these other things. Like people are trying to figure it out. They should be, reading the Bitcoin Standard or studying economics rather than self-help because they're looking in the wrong direction. But if we frame it that way, then we might say that Bitcoin is the ultimate form of self-help. Right? You start putting your savings in Bitcoin, you're literally helping yourself financially. You're pulling yourself out of this trap. You're opting out of the fiat matrix. And then also if you study Bitcoin and you get very involved in the Bitcoin rabbit hole cognitively and philosophically, you will help yourself a lot too. Right? You will start
and others and they will help you again in turn. Yeah.
Yes. You become part of a community that's really competent at growing its purchasing power and growing its skills and critically examining itself and thinking about big ideas and big picture things. Like you level up. You actually level up, not only financially, but also spiritually.
When you adopt Bitcoin, you stop running the rat race and you start walking your own path.
Yes. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money. And be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.